podcasting has become a global phenomenon. And as such, all over the world, people want to launch podcasts. But how do you do it? What microphone do you use? What software do you use? What's your show format? How do you launch a podcast to be able to get your message to the world? The extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Rebelling against business plans and debt, rebelling against what society expects of us to build cool businesses, make money, have fun, and do good. Let's create something extraordinary together. Welcome to The Rebel Entrepreneur. So welcome to the Rebel Entrepreneur podcast. I'm very excited about this episode. We have two people with me today. I've got Patrick, the podcast manager, who is no longer in the background. He is here with us live on the show.
Once again in the forefront. Good to be back, coming out of the shadows again.
We don't let you out often, and it's for good reason.
But yeah, pleasure to be here.
And I also have with me Kim, who I met at an event at the Mr. Money Mustache headquarters a couple of weekends ago. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And you sent me an email saying, I'm interested in launching a podcast. Can you tell me how? And Alan's brain works a little bit strangely sometimes. It goes, the best way to show someone how to launch a podcast is to do a podcast about launching a podcast. I don't know how many times I can say the word podcast in a sentence, but that was my thought. So we thought we'd do this episode and share with everyone how to launch podcasts and how to get going. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about what you want to do, Kim, what your idea is, what you want to do with it.
Sure. It's not fully formed yet, and I think that's why we're talking. I would love to do a podcast. I've considered lots of different ideas. And essentially, I'm kind of at that point in my business where I'm starting to think about how I can get my information out there a little bit more. You know, I'm switching from doing lots of one-on-ones to wanting to find a way to speak to a larger audience. And I'm not entirely sure what the topic would be. Maybe I've considered maybe the idea of having people come on and do actual sessions with them. So I'm a women's empowerment and confidence coach. And so I think it'd be cool to actually do some live sessions with clients. That's just one of my ideas, but yeah, here we are.
Here we are. You're live on a podcast. What better way to learn? And actually, the live coaching is a very interesting idea. So let's actually start there, because you need to figure out a format for the show. And let me give you a couple of different ideas for formats, and then we can discuss them. You can do the guest interview, which is the stereotypical one that everyone does. You find a guest, someone famous, someone interesting, someone unknown, and you get them on the podcast. You ask them a bunch of questions. There's your content, tick, done. So there's the interview format. There's the monologue, where it's you and a microphone alone in a darkened room, and you talk into the microphone and deliver your stuff. I've done one of those episodes. It's a lot more work to do the monologue episodes, because you need to think through what you're going to say. You need to structure it. And when you're just talking into a microphone, it can be a bit weird. Like, at least here I have bounce. I have I have Patrick raising his eyebrows at me and smiling. And you're smiling, and I have a little bit of bounce. But on that solo monologue one, it is just you and a microphone, and you just put it out there. So we've got interview, monologue. Then you can sort of do the panel format. So the panel format is maybe you have 3 people that you ask questions to, and you sort of get a panel and you tackle a different subject each week. There's lots of different examples of these. So we've got interview, monologue, panel. Then you've got sort of the the co-hosted one, where it's maybe you and a co-host. An example of that would be Choose FI with Brad and Jonathan. And sometimes they have a guest on, sometimes it's the two of them bantering and talking about the subject of financial independence, but it's the two of them that does that sort of thing. And then the final one I guess I really wanted to give you was the sort of NPR edited, they go out and interview a bunch of people, they come back with all this audio and then structure it into a story, and it's highly edited, highly curated. There's the rough formats. From those formats, which one do you think sounds good? What sounds good to you?
Yeah, I think so. That was one of the questions I had for you, is the idea of having guests. I wonder, isn't that, I've heard it's a lot of work to find guests that you're interested in hosting and also then like get them to commit. So I was curious if that's like how you found that, like if that's something you've encountered, what y'all think about that.
Yeah, at times it can definitely be painstaking. There's a lot of cold emails. There's a lot of cold calls if you want to go that extra layer. And just my best advice for that sort of aspect is to try to get ahead of it. If you want to start recording a podcast in 2 months, you want to start reaching out to people now, because it's better to have those guests lined up and that content backlogged than trying to figure it out a week before you publish. But it's just kind of that like cold sales approach. You reach out to them, tell them the benefits, say, hey, I can promote whatever you're doing. I'll give you a little section of the podcast to promote yourself and where the listeners can find you. But yeah, it's definitely a process to try to get people scheduled. And then there's the whole mess of accommodating each other's schedules. But it's just one of those things you have to, put your nose down and do the work, essentially.
Which I have a slightly different take, which is there's the cold approach to people you don't know, which if you're going for famous people in your industry, you might well have to do. But for me, I already had a huge network of people I knew that were business owners, business creators. I had all sorts of different friends around the world, and I didn't have any problems with it. I can think off the top of my head of 50 people that would be fascinating to talk to for an hour. So it does depend on the size of your network and whether you've already got those people in your network that you're going to interview. For me, I didn't have any issues whatsoever, and I continue to meet 3 to 5 people a week that I'm like, you'd be great. And then I have to stop myself because I have too much content, too much. So I think it depends on whether you're outreaching cold to people you don't know or speaking to people you do know. And a minor other bit there is you spoke about the coaching, the live sessions. I think that's super smart. Our coaching series on this blog has become very popular. It goes really well. People get a huge amount of value out of it, and they very much enjoy the journey. So I will coach someone for 6 months to a year on their business, and we record once every 2 to 3 weeks. And then I take those episodes and we release them one a week in a condensed period. And you have a 12 episode or a 15 episode arc of someone launching a business or launching a Kickstarter or whatever it is. And they put it out there. And then you only need one guest that you work with for a period of time. It's a lot longer scale, but time is going to pass anyway. So there's some thoughts. We've probably hit you with a huge amount of information immediately. What are you thinking, Kim?
No, it's so good. I think that I'm a little more introverted, and the idea of interviewing people and finding people sounds terrible to me. I don't think I would want to do that.
Well, I can offer. Sorry,
go on. Yeah.
Cut in. Some advice that I could definitely offer is to hire a me. There's tons of freelance producers and tons of freelance editors out there. And honestly, if you can find anyone that'll accommodate your budget, and just let them know, hey, this is kind of a spreadsheet of people I would like to have on. Would you mind reaching out to them?
Yeah, totally. I mean, even that process, I think I would have to like outsource, because I don't really have the time to even like research people. So I feel like that to me sounds like it would be so much work. And I'm actually really used to monologuing because I create a lot of course content for the programs that I run in coaching. So the idea of maybe not like an entire monologuing series, but partially, or like pulling my, I think like my husband and I have a really interesting situation, and having him on for some episodes would be cool. But yeah, the coaching, I think that sounds really good to me. And I don't know, I don't
Well,
know where I'm going from
it
this, but
it's definitely good to work with what you have. Like you said, you're already doing sessions with people, and I'm assuming there's a lot of interesting conversations that come out of that, and conversations that other people could find useful. Uh, I would say the one objection I would have to that is you're operating a business, and this podcast is going to pair with your business. So the only drawback could be you may be offering some of your services for free at that point. But that's sort of depending on what your comfort level is regarding it.
yeah, well, I think that's like the key, right? Is what I do, I don't think you really understand the value of it until you're doing it, because people kind of live in this like sort of like you can just coast. You can be like okay, not addressing your stuff, and until you see somebody go through a process of uncovering like their blind spots and really making progress, you don't always see the potential that you could experience in life. So I think it, and I tend to be of the mentality that if I give away free information, that naturally business will come back to me in like a, you know, tenfold or whatever fold.
Yeah.
So I'm totally okay with giving away free information. And I think it would be really fun to engage with somebody in a way that could be witnessed. Because in the psychotherapy realm, which I've been part of like for 15 years, it's behind closed doors and you don't really get to see all the progress and transformation that happens, you know?
Yeah. And I would, like I said earlier, work with what you have because you're already good at that. You've been doing it for 15 years. At a certain point, it's just going to become second nature to you to add a recording aspect to it.
So let's just float back up to the top for a second, because we've kind of got show format, which then leads to who do you want on the show. We've got the name of the show, we've got the length of the show, and then we've got all the technical bits of what equipment are we going to use to record, and what microphone do guests use if we have them on, and how do we record it, how do we edit it, how do we publish it, all of that stuff. So we've got sort of a lot across the top that we need to look at. Just as you were speaking about formats, length of show, I did a survey at the end of season 1 for my audience and said, how long should my show be? Tell me. And I put one of the options. It was like 15 minutes, half an hour, 45, an hour. Don't care as long as the content is good. And guess which one everyone went to?
Don't care.
Don't care as long as the content is good.
No.
So if you're leaning towards a monologue episode, don't be shy of doing a 10-minute episode. Don't be shy of doing a 15-minute episode. People actually really appreciate that. And I know they get scared off. Like the biggest podcast in the world at the moment is the Tim Ferriss one. It's one of the biggest out there. And he does 3-hour epic shows. They're ridiculous. But I get scared off listening to them because I'm like, when am I going to get 3 hours to do it? And if there's a simple short episode that fixes a problem, answers a question, it can be incredibly powerful. So I don't think you should force it to fit a certain time scale. So if you want to do a monologue episode where you talk and it's 12 minutes, that's it. Do that. It adds value. Move on. Don't drag it out. I think that's an incredibly important piece.
And how do you feel about the idea of like switching between like a 12-minute episode and like a 60-minute episode? Is that okay?
As long as the audience come to expect it. So in my first season, I had 3 types of episodes that I would work for. and I had what I called the educational episode, where it was like 10 ways to do this or 5 ways to build a business without debt. Then I'd have a coaching episode where you live coach someone, you helped them, you did all those different bits. And then I would have a success story episode, someone who's been there, done it, built a successful business. And I would always say, these are the 3 types of episodes. This is what's coming up next. Here's what we're doing. And you'd have those different types. Now it's kind of morphed, and I've got the Monday is a sort of 10 ways to do this or a success story, and then you've got the coaching on a Thursday. But I think if people know what's happening, they're fine. It's when you go, oh, I was really looking forward to the longer episode and I've got 5 minutes, this is a bit naff, they feel disappointed and shortchanged. But if it's a really powerful 12-minute episode and they know that's coming next, they'll be super excited. So I think it's about clarity and communication rather than always doing the same thing.
And I feel like I should emphasize, you're recording a podcast. It's not like you're doing this live, and it's not like, especially since you haven't even started out yet, that there's the need for you to be putting out something every week. So you can try all these formats out if you feel comfortable or have the time to do that, and figure out what works best for you and your schedule and what works best for your creative, expectations.
That makes
a
sense.
mini experiment, if you will.
There it is, Alan. There it is.
And Patrick is absolutely right. You can record 3, 4, 5 episodes of different varieties and see which one you like. You could even put them out there and ask your audience to vote on which ones they want to continue to see. And you'll get lovely engagement. You get all sorts of energy from that. And yeah, like mini experiments are fun. Test and ask people what they want.
That's a great idea. I like it.
So, how do you feel about this at the moment? Is it sort of coming together in your mind of how you would do it?
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I think like the biggest question I have about podcasts is how much time does it really take, and how energetically draining can it be? Like I've heard some friends have started one and then quit because it feels like it just takes up too much time and energy. And I'm wondering, I mean, clearly you like it and you're doing it and it's been consistent. So I'm wondering if like the team is what makes the difference, or all of those pieces. How do you make it something that's like exciting for you?
I love that question. Let's run through how we do an episode, and I've got an example of where it did nearly kill me. Patrick, I'm going to ask you to jump in for certain bits because actually we do it as a team.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things here is how much of it are you going to do yourself and how much you're going to have people working with you. And you can do it all yourself or with your husband as a team. You could edit the audio. You could learn to do that. I know you could. You could put it out. It can be as big a project as you want, or you can have a team to do it with you. And let me give you an example of where it nearly wiped me out. Right at the start, I was trying to get it going. Sean McHugh was in a few of the episodes at the start. He really wanted me to record the entire Rebel Business School course, which is 2 weeks long, and then edit that into shows. And I kept saying to him, who's going to edit it? Because there's 2 types of editor. There's the editor who will like master the audio and remove the ums and ahs and make it sound good. And then there's the editor that decides which bit goes where and structures the story. And you will pay a lot more for an editor who actually like structures the story and brings it all together and that stuff. And you'll pay less for an editor who just removes ums and ahs and masters the audio. And he kept saying, don't worry about it. It won't be you. We'll hire an editor. It won't be you. And we recorded the whole thing. And then guess who it ended up being? And re-listening to 2 weeks of audio, even at double speed, is a full-time job for a week. Like, and I just don't think people really figure this. And there is a reason why everyone does the hour-long interview model. And that's because it's easiest. You have a chat for an hour, you remove the ums and ahs, you do an ending, do a beginning, and then you publish it. Done.
Yeah.
There's a huge reason why. So you've got to be very careful, and we need to make this sustainable for you. Otherwise, you'll do 3 episodes and then you'll forget about it and you won't do it. So, sort of switching to what do we do for an episode, here's how it works for me. I find someone interesting to chat to. I don't have any issues with that. They just seem to appear in my life. They're everywhere. They're online. They're all over the place. I have interesting friends. Or I do a coaching series with a business, and you speak to them once and you have a chat and you go, okay, like I can help you with this. And then you book another one, I don't set it up as a coaching series. I just say, let's do a podcast like we've done now. And if it's exciting, we'll do a second one and a third one and et cetera, et cetera. So I find a guest, I set up a time to record. So we set up a date and time, and I send a calendar link out. Like, make sure it goes in the calendar, the diary, as the British people would call it, so that we make sure it is on time. Everyone knows where they are. There's a piece of software we use to record called Zencaster. There are lots of them out there. There's Squadcast, Riverside. There's all sorts. We use Zencaster, and I create the podcast episode. I send it out. I set it all up. And then I forget about it until we show up. Just as we did a few minutes ago, Kim. You showed up, and then we have this 5 minutes of, is my microphone working? Hello? Yes. Your headphones on? I can hear myself twice. You do that for 5 minutes. And then you get into it. It's quite fun, and I have a lot to say. So does Patrick. We have lots of questions. We have a great fun. The shows are really easy to do. And it's about an hour. And I would say 99% of shows that I record like this, I leave with more energy than I start. There's the odd one that drains the life out of me, but that's very rare. Then I finish, and I have to download the files, and I send them to the editor. So I take the audio files, I send them to the editor, and then I write an episode title. I write an episode description in a spreadsheet for Patrick, so it lists all of the episodes out. And I send all that off. I get a photo from the guest. So hopefully after this, you'll take a nice photo of yourself with that microphone, Kim, and we can use it as the cover art. Or if you're not comfortable doing that, then we can get a photo of a microphone or whatever it is. We can come up with some cover art. And that's sort of my job done. Then it's over to Patrick and Andrew, the editor.
Yeah.
What happens next, Patrick? Because there's some magic that happens behind the scenes, and this is why we keep him locked up most of the time.
Yeah. So Andrew will edit the episode. And then from there, it sort of becomes a whole cross coordination thing for me. I will relay that photo that Alan had taken of the guest, or the guest had taken, and I will get that to our graphic designer. And on this particular project, we have individualized artwork for every single episode. So the graphic designer will create something with that photo, maybe the theme, the title. If you've listened to the podcast before, I'm sure you've seen some of it. From there, the editor will finish the audio and upload it in a place called Libsyn, which is I forgot the word. It's on the tip of my tongue. A hosting service. It's a hosting service, which is something that allows the podcast to be distributed to all major podcasting platforms: Google, Amazon, Apple, Spotify. So we'll upload it there. I will take the title and description and throw it in there as well. Then from there, we have to schedule the episode, which Alan does a fantastic job of doing. He'll sort of lay everything out based on theme, and then we will put it up on the proper date. And then from there, there's upload night, which is basically just scheduling the episode on our website, notifying the guest that was on, hey, your episode is out right now. And then from there, it's pretty much published. Usually we'll do some piece of promo at least once a month. So we'll write up an email and send that out to everybody on our mailing list. We'll make audiograms, which are just sort of like the episode artwork plus a little like wave, I guess, like you're seeing on the bottom of your screen right now. Sorry, listeners at home, you can't see that. But it'll just sort of like flicker up and down over the episode artwork, and it's just a little piece of promo that we can use going forward. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts that go on afterwards. But thankfully, our team is very on top of everything, and it's sort of a simple process. Everyone just kind of does their job and fills in where they need to fill in.
Now, it can be simpler than this. We have a lot of moving parts. I feel like Kim is looking at me like a deer in the headlights currently going, "Ah!" Kim, how do you feel? Tell us what's going on. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm curious about the range, because it just seems like with any business and anything you're doing within a business, you can kind of like make it as simple or complicated as you want, and you can also pay very little, or you can pay a lot, and you can outsource, or you can do it all yourself. And so there's just a lot of options. So I guess I'm curious to hear like what the range of cost and time and what it would look like to employ a team, like financially, as well as like how much time does it save.
Well, you probably know this podcast is about doing all things as cheaply as possible without spending any money. So I'll start there. If I do the cheapest possible version and then Patrick does the like, here's roughly what the team members you would need. So the cheapest possible version would be you recording something. You could use a free piece of software like Audacity to edit it. And ideally, you would have an inflow of conversation so there would be minimal editing. And I know some people, like, for example, the mad scientist, Brandon, he just records the episode, does as minimal editing as possible, sticks the beginning and ending on and publishes it. And he does it as simply as possible. So you could use a free piece of software like Audacity to do that. You could use a free piece of software like Canva to design a little piece of graphic to promote it. You would need a podcast hosting platform if you want it to turn up on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Libsyn is the one we use. There's lots out there. But you could kind of do that and then just stick it out and do a little bit of promotion. That would be like the basic version that's as cheap as possible.
Do you pay sorry. Do you pay for the streaming services, or is that free?
So the hosting services, you do have to pay for them to sort of touch all platforms and not have like their watermark in the bottom corner of your episode artwork. But that's like very minimal cost. Like that route that Alan just described would probably cost you about $7 a month.
Okay. But would take a lot of time and energy.
It would take a lot of time and energy. Like you can minimize the time and energy by doing those interview episodes. As you get better, you'll have less ums and ahs. You'll have less to cut out. You can get a little bit smoother at it. You can definitely minimize it and make it as easy as possible. It can also be as long as you want. And I did meet one podcaster that she would invite guests on and then she would read all of their books before they came on. She would be highly prepared. She said it would take her a week to do one episode. Whereas the process for me, my part of the process with the team is the recording is an hour. My title and description is probably 15 minutes. Like the whole thing probably takes me 90 minutes an episode, roughly. But that is like the most bare bones possible version you can do. Otherwise, like, I don't think I could do the podcast. There's not enough of me to go round, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's my concern too. Like I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, my husband stays home with the kids. So like I don't have tons of time, and I want to find that like balance between having an awesome team to outsource things to and also not make it be super duper expensive.
So let's go to the luxury version if you wanted to splash the cash and hire yourself a Patrick. Like the luxury version, Patrick, like who do we have in our team and who does what?
So we have Andrew who does the editing. Me, I handle all the sort of production work, and I guess like the best way to describe a podcast producer is I do all the non-creative things so that way Alan can stay creative. So I'll handle all the back end stuff. That's kind of that can be a bit of an issue and a bit draining. And then Liz is our graphic designer who will publish or create all the episode artwork and get that to me. And then we also have Andrea who sort of designs the site and sort of has that groundwork with the network that we're a part of, allowing us to sort of use promotional softwares, etc.
And you can, like, there's everywhere in between. So there's like the luxury version where you have a team of 3 that helps you, and then there's a version where you just have someone like Patrick who can edit audio and produce and do both. And then you don't even do the graphics design. You just have one logo for all of the show art and just do your social media promotion. So you can kind of find your place on that scale of where you want to be. And I guess for everyone listening to this as well, like it's pretty much like buying a car. You can spend as much or as little as you want. Like you can go all the way up to the Lamborghini that has all the speed and all the bells and whistles, and you can go all the way down to a push bike, and you can have everything in between. And it's kind of up to you what you want to do. I don't think I would have, well, I know this, I would not have done this podcast without Choose FI, the team, Patrick behind me. It's a huge project to create something like this with 2 episodes a week. So I would not have done it. I'm a bit like you, Kim. I just would not have done it without them. This would not exist if it wasn't for Brad and Jonathan and Ed from Choose FI.
And also, I kind of want to tack in. I think we made that like post-production process sound a little more daunting than it actually is. A lot, like a big bulk of my work comes from Alan. Just sort of like he'll have an idea and he'll send a message my way, and he'll be like, "Do you think we can do this?" And then I'll be like, "Let me find out." Give me a link to see if we can. So yeah, that post-production stuff, as like daunting and large as it may seem, that's really like at most between everybody a 5 to 10 hour effort a week.
For 2 episodes or for 1?
Probably for 1 episode. For 2 episodes, I'd say like collectively as a team, we probably spent about 20 to 25 hours making it happen.
Those are the numbers I needed to know. Thank you. That's a lot. Like I don't have 5 or 10 hours in my week to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but also bear in mind we're doing like Alan said, it's the luxury option. There's a lot of steps going into place.
There is the simple option, which you do a coaching episode, you record it once a week, it gets simply edited and you put it out. There is the simple version, but I guess how does that match with what you're doing? And what's the only real way to know if you're going to enjoy the process, Kim?
To give it a shot.
Do a mini experiment. That's it. That's the only way to know, is to do a mini experiment, because I feel energized after the episodes. Like talking to you now and chatting it through lights my life up. I do feel like we've left you a little bit like, I don't know if I want to do this, but hopefully we'll get to a positive space by the end of the episode. But it gives me huge energy. And there was one particular day we used a piece of software to book in podcast appointments with me. What was the software called, Patrick?
Calendly.
So I put my availability and I was free for a whole day, and then 6 people booked in without a single break in between. So I had 6 75-minute slots booked in for that day. And I remember looking at it going, I've made a mistake, but I did it. And I was buzzing afterwards. I recorded 6 episodes in a day. I felt great afterwards. I slept well, don't get me wrong. So I think it just depends a lot on whether this stuff lights you up. Because if recording episodes lights you up, you're going to find it easy. If it takes the energy out of you, it's going to take you away from your existing business and it's going to cause you problems.
Do you find that there's like a, I hate to use like businessy stuffy terms, but return of interest, like, or investment rather? Do you find that like that doing a podcast actually creates more traction for your business, or I don't, yeah. Do you think it's like a helpful business marketing tool?
Yeah, so I think this actually is really interesting. The question is, what are you trying to achieve by doing the podcast? Are you looking to make it its own thing, to make money out of sponsorship advertising? Are you using it as the top of the funnel marketing to bring people into your service, to get people excited about what you're doing? The question is, what are we going to do with it? For me, I started this podcast when I hit financial independence. So I don't make any money out of doing this podcast. If you're listening now, like, I hope you enjoy it. Like, I give my time away. We don't make any money out of doing it, but it brings people to our courses. It helps people know what we're doing. And my whole mission has been to change the way entrepreneurship is taught, to help people build businesses, to make money, to have fun. That's what drives me. But I don't need to make a profit. But it does get the message out there and create unbelievable opportunities. So, what do you want to achieve, Kim? What do you want the podcast to do for you? And if any of you are listening to this thinking about launching a podcast, that's the question. What do you hope the podcast will do for you? What's the goal, the mission?
Yeah, I'm not to the point of financial independence yet. So I think that unfortunately some of my motivations are a little bit more selfish.
But that's good. That's great. Like, you're adding value to the world and you should be rewarded for it. There is nothing wrong with making money. Making money is a good thing because, like, if you were making money, you would be doing good in the world. So, like, have no fear over that. That's fine. We applaud it. You're on an entrepreneur show. Yes, make money. Let's get excited about it.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I do see kind of that like tipping point though. I can feel it coming where you can start to feel the idea of doing something without an agenda whatsoever, like the difference. So I do feel like I'm getting there, but I'm not there yet. And so part of it is creating the income that I need to sustain myself and my family. And so building my business to get to that place of financial freedom faster would be cool. And so some of it is for sure like creating a easier funnel, also, helping the world and getting my information out there. There's so many things that I feel like it would be really cool if it was just common knowledge, if people understood how to like regulate their nervous system. It seems like a really simple thing to me that everybody should just know, and it's not easily accessible, or as easily accessible as it could be. So I think it's a combination of motivations, but at this point in my business, I do a lot. I've been doing a lot of one-to-ones, and I'm ready to get to the next step where I'm stepping back from that and able to get my information out there to more people more quickly, more easily.
So, do you want the podcast to make money by its own right, or do you want it to drive traffic, customers to your existing business?
So the option A has never been something I've even considered as a possibility, to be honest, because coming from the world of psychotherapy, that would be unethical, and would potentially lose my license if I did things like that. So but moving into the coaching realm, go on. Yeah.
What, you've lost me with how would
I
this
can't
lose your
even like
license?
there's just a lot of there's an ethical code that you have to follow as a psychotherapist, and there's regulations and rules around privacy, confidentiality, as well as marketing. And I don't know that it would be okay. Not, I mean, it's irrelevant because I'm not even working as a psychotherapist anymore, but I don't think that like having affiliate relationships would be deemed ethically okay within the psychotherapy realm, because you wouldn't be doing it strictly for the client's benefit.
But there are many different ways to make money on a podcast. It doesn't have to be an affiliate link. It could be sponsorship. You could be selling your own events or your products. There's a million different ways to make money from a podcast. Nearly all of them rely on you having a reasonable size audience, and they do not happen immediately. But there are many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally interested. I've never really learned about any of those avenues for creating more traction or income, so it's all new to me.
Well, I can give you one right now off the top of my head that I think would be perfect for you. There's a site called Patreon where fans of your content, even if you're not someone who can generate like content that is specifically catering to advertisers, if people are finding what you're doing helpful or it's bringing them some form of joy or entertainment throughout their day, they can pledge like $1 a month or something like that. If you get enough of those pledges, you could make a significantly decent income based on what your Patreon donations are. It's sort of like the fans are funding you so that way you can keep providing them with the content that they want to see.
So it's kind of like similar to the idea of like a nonprofit, like you're getting funded to do something good for the world.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. And I'm actually going to do a slight plug for an older episode. We did an episode that was 11 ways to monetize your platform. It was season 3 of the coaching season with Andrew Alinda, came out on the 19th of August, 2021. That is a great episode, and it's got 11 different ways. He had a YouTube channel, but the principles are the same whether you've got a blog, a YouTube channel, a podcast. So we've got 11 ways to monetize the channel there. Moving on to the second way, because it sounds like that's what you were actually thinking about, is it would spread awareness of your business and bring customers in to your existing business. I actually think that's probably a quicker way to be able to get going, make money, build trust than building up the platform first, because monetizing a platform relies on you having a bigger audience. Like there are ways to monetize with smaller audiences of 1,000 or 2,000, but you've still got to get there. You've still got to launch your podcast and get there. Whereas putting it out there to bring customers to your existing business is probably a quicker and easier way to get going.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do a combination of all of that, but for sure, my big vision is to be able to employ other coaches to keep, creating more opportunities for people to gain from this kind of work.
Yeah.
And then if you see the podcast as a marketing tool, I think that can work really well for you, and you can deliver your episode. Like the easiest format from what I'm hearing is I would do two things. I would do the monologue episode and the coaching episode. And then at the end of every episode, I would do a small, here's what we do at our business. If you want to come to us, find us on this website or fill out the form for a free half an hour chat about what is you want to achieve. Well, however you do that, the transition between the two. But I feel like that's a nice, easy, simple way to get going.
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening in my head too. No, for real. That's really what I was thinking. After talking, that feels like an awesome structure.
And I will like to chime in here. That sense of community you get from sort of having that be your goal with your podcast is phenomenal. Like some of the most rewarding work I've ever done has been with Alan, where we'll have, for example, we're having people take over and interview Alan on episodes. And like the fact that he said 6 people plugged in the second we made those hours available and just filled his entire day. Like I think that's the coolest thing ever, that 6 people were willing to just sit down with Alan and pick his brain for an hour.
And it is a lot of fun doing the podcast. Like you never know who you meet through this stuff, where it goes. It is unbelievable who you will meet and what will happen. And if you get it out there and you promote it, the one caveat to all of this is, you know, the expression, if you build it, they will come. Have you heard that one?
Yes.
It's Field of Dreams, right?
Yes.
Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. Or if you're slightly geekier like me, it's Wayne's World. Wayne's World was there with
Which
if you build
one
it, they will
came
come.
first?
Definitely Kevin Costner. But it's the biggest lie out there. The movies are lying to us. If you build it, no one will come unless you promote it. There's 0 point putting out a podcast and just leaving it on the platforms, hoping that it will be found. Hope is a dreadful business strategy. So there must be some promotion. Like if you've already got a mailing list for your existing business, you can share it with to build community. If you've got some social channels, if you are a member of a certain group, like you're still going to have to promote it, but it's an easy way in to build trust. And I think the power of this is people get to connect with you, Kim, for however long the episode is, 20, 30 minutes, which is a long form. They get to hear your voice, hear your words, connect with you. It builds trust at a different level compared to like a flyer that you post out there or a short video on social media or a picture. And it can be a fantastic tool for building the trust you need with people to get them to work with you as that confidence or empowerment coach.
That's super helpful to hear, to understand. I think that's, yeah, like understanding the motivation and what would actually come out of putting in the effort to create a podcast, aside from just, you know, being a good human and like giving back to the world, which is cool. Like, that's great.
It's cool. It doesn't pay the mortgage.
Yeah. And I feel like we should also mention, like you said, it was like I have my own selfish reasons for doing it. It's still not inherently selfish if you're putting out helpful content for people that is free for them to consume. I see it as a win-win.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I see that too, and I think like it's just something you have to remind yourself. Like I have to remind myself at least when I'm like making money on something that it's like a good thing, not a bad thing to make money and create freedom for yourself, because that creates more freedom for you to give back to the world. It's just an old, shitty way of thinking.
Well, I think a lot of us have that programming that it's weird asking for money, it's weird selling stuff, and like we should be just doing good. But not all of us can be Mother Teresa. Like you have mortgages, you have kids, you have life. You've got to earn money to be able to live. And there does become a point where you have enough, and then you can switch to going, I just want to do good. But until that point, like I still need to earn money. The like podcast still needs to earn money to pay Patrick and to pay Andrew, and we've got the whole team. I have to charge for Rebel Business School because there is a whole group of people that delivers it, and I cannot do good in the world without money. Like it takes me money and resources to be able to create change and do good. So my personal opinion is earn as much as you can so that you can do good with it and have fun and create amazing content. There is nothing wrong with making money. It's actually the easiest way to create change in the world is to make a lot of cash and do good with it.
Agreed. I agree.
I feel like that's a great episode. Go and earn money and do good. Leave us now.
Before if we're gonna wrap up the episode.
No, we're not. There's more to do. But
wait,
like,
I have a question about promoting too, because you said like promotion. Can I ask about that?
No.
Like, please.
I'll answer on his behalf. Yes, absolutely. Ask us.
I think that's a really good point, because I feel like a lot of business owners, and myself included, like promotion is not something that happens at, I feel like, the beginning stages of a business, and in the same way, and as you're like growing, it's a newer, sounds silly, but like a newer concept to me, the idea of having somebody help me promote. So what does that mean for a podcast? How do you promote a podcast?
Well, let me give you 3 instant ideas, And then, like, because we could start now with 100 ways to promote your podcast. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of them, but let me give you 3 instant ones. The first one, based on the coaching series with Andrew Alinda, he's a calisthenics coach, so he does fitness. And what he does is he goes into the Facebook groups about fitness. And in those Facebook groups, people are asking questions. How do I do an LSIT? How do I do this? What's your biggest problem with this? Which protein powder should I do? And what he does is he replies going, here's my thoughts and here's a video I created to answer that question. And he has found that incredibly valuable way of connecting with people and offering value. So if you've got a confidence group and an empowerment group and people are asking, how do I deal with imposter syndrome, or how do I feel confident approaching someone, or whatever it is, and you go, oh, I'd love to help you, I created an episode just exactly to fix this problem, here it is. Well, that's an incredibly powerful way to engage people. So number one, I would say answering questions wherever they're coming from. You find them on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you'll find them everywhere. There are groups where that's happening. Number two, it's about pushing out there. So the broadcast promotion. So it's on your social media channels. It's reaching out to different people. It's like the push promotion and sending it out there. Those are my first two that I think will help. My third, Patrick and I did an episode of this podcast where we did a mini experiment. Where we hired a bunch of people to promote it and then compared the figures of the people we hired versus he and I promoting it. Patrick, would you like to tell us your experience of being forced to promote my podcast?
Didn't go according to plan. I know that much. I was accused of selling a pyramid scheme on some of the online platforms I reached out to. But it wasn't horrible. Like, we did end up doing better than most of the people actually all of the people we hired in terms of view count for the episodes. So I would say the lesson learned from that for me was to just be creative and try. I mean, it can't hurt to try. Like, I have the funny joke that people think I'm selling a pyramid scheme. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is one of our podcasts got an additional 200 listens, and it was 3 months old. So there's really no shame in just kind of rolling up your sleeves and doing it yourself. It can be very useful.
Which then kind of brings me to the third idea, which is build a list. So the most valuable asset in any business is your list of potential customers. So promote the podcast, get people to sign up to your mailing list. Mailing list on your blog. MailChimp allows you to have a list up to 2,000 people. Do you have a mailing list, Kim?
Yeah, I have a MailChimp.
Well, then you can reach out to those people and send them an email and go, here's the latest episode. Here's the latest content. You can engage with them and say, what else do you want me to create? But that list is the way you're going to get to people. And if you're adding value, that then will lead back to them becoming customers. And it's actually easier to reach out with value than it is to reach out with buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. It's a lot softer approach to be able to go, here is my latest podcast. If you're interested in coaching, contact me here. It's a lot easier to do, but the list is so valuable. Yeah. How does that make you feel with some ideas about the promotion, and what do you think, Kim?
Good. I was also curious because I think you mentioned that Patrick helps with promotions. Maybe I misheard that, but is that part of the work that you do?
I structure the emails. Alan typically writes the bulk of it, and he does a fantastic job doing so. But I'll, include all the links to where you can find whatever we're looking for. I also throw in like the image artwork or whatever relevant links are necessary to whatever project we're trying to tackle with that mailing list.
Got it. Yeah, that's something I can do for sure.
And like Alan said, it's extremely useful, and it kind of helps you connect to your audience in a way that you wouldn't typically be able to do just recording a standard podcast.
Got it. That sounds lovely.
So, Kim, based on our conversation today, are you going to run screaming from the hills and never run a podcast, or are you going to do a mini experiment? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to do a mini experiment, but I think part of the experiment would have to be having a team because I don't think I could accomplish it on my own for sure. I mean, I could, but I don't have the time to do so.
Can you make John, your husband, do it? Can you put him to work?
He doesn't really like being forced to do things, but I could ask him if he was interested.
You could ask him, do you fancy learning podcast editing? Do you want to have a go?
He's had a lot of these questions over the last year. Like, how do you feel about just being a stay-at-home dad and not working this year? Like, how do you feel about just handling our finances or maybe real estate investments or something instead of traditional jobs? So, well, I think he'd be interested. He was interested in the idea of being on the podcast, so I think he would be excited to take part for sure.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And also, sorry, I'd like to throw this out. Kim, it's been great having you on. I really hope you do create this podcast. And if you ever have any questions about technical aspects or anything, feel free to use me as an email or a resource. Just shoot me an email and I'll do whatever I can to help out.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely will. I absolutely want to learn more details about what a team can do and the different costs and possibilities, because it's definitely something I'm interested in. Just a matter of when to start this and creating the space and time to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your next steps, Kim? What are you going to plan to do? Yeah.
Next steps. I will probably chat with Patrick and see what support I could get, and put a little inquiry out into the world to see if somebody would be interested in being coached live and give it a go.
I love that. That's fantastic next steps. I feel like that's actually actionable and might actually lead to the first episode.
Yeah, totally. I think that sounds amazing. I definitely want to try it.
There is a whole bunch more to think through as you do this. It's going to be an interesting journey. Hopefully, this has given enough to get going. If you're listening to this, building a podcast can be an incredible way to build an audience, to connect with people, to share your message with the world. It is not a short-term way to make money. It is not something that you put out there and think, I'm going to release 5 episodes and I'll make 10 grand this month. That is not how this particular platform works. You need to release it, build your audience, work over time, but the rewards can be huge on this particular platform. If you want to launch a podcast, you can do it all yourself. You can record the episodes. You can do it free with a piece of software called Audacity. You could edit it yourself. You can release it yourself. You might need to use something like Libsyn, which will cost you a few dollars a month to be able to host it. But there is a low-cost version. There's also, you can spend as much as you want to on this. My advice, as always, is do a mini experiment. Record 5 episodes, promote it, put it out into the world, see what reaction you get, see if people engage, and then decide if you want to go further and go all in. You look like you had something to say, Patrick.
You kind of covered it all. I agree with you. Just try it. That's my whole thought process. And yeah, also to anybody out there who's interested in starting a podcast, there are tons of people like me out there who are willing to just help you get going. I'm not going to like charge anybody if they email me asking a question about how to create a podcast. I just like seeing people express themselves creatively. So feel free to reach out to people because people do like to help.
Patrick, if anyone's listening to this and wants to launch a podcast, if they need a podcast manager, how do they find you?
At patrickw.maroney@gmail.com. That's the best place to reach me. I don't want to direct them to like my contracting profile. If you have like a general question about podcasting, I don't want to charge you any money to help you get going.
This is what Patrick does for a living, though. So if you actually want to hire him, like, he's happy to answer questions. Don't inundate him. If you want to hire him, do hire him. He is lovely, but not too much because I need him to do my work. Okay. Kim, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to find out more about your women's empowerment and confidence coaching, where do they go to find out about you?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thanks for having me. This is amazing. My website is kimmisal.com, and I have an awesome Instagram account where I share a lot of free info, which is the Confidence and Wealth Coach.
The Confidence and Wealth Coach. I love it. So check that out on Instagram. You will find Kim there. Thank you for listening to The Rebel Entrepreneur. Go out there, start a podcast, make some money, have some fun, and change the world. It's your actions that will make it happen. You can have any life you want to. Choose to build something cool. Choose to take action. Choose to work to make your dreams become reality. Stand out. Be different. Be yourself. Be a rebel entrepreneur.